Thinking about launching a podcast but overwhelmed by all the moving parts? At TurnKey Podcast Productions, we take the hassle out of podcasting so you can focus on the talk, not the tech. From concept to launch, guest booking to post-production, we handle everything. Need a strategy to grow your show and turn guests into clients? Yep, we do that too. DIY or done for you, we've got the solution that fits. Whether you're just getting started or ready to scale, TurnKey is your behind-the-scenes podcast team. TurnKey Podcast Productions. Your voice, your message, fully produced. Learn more at turnkeypodcast.com/contact. That's turnkeypodcast.com/contact.
Here's what you can look forward to on this episode of The Nice Guys on Business.
And so, but fortunately, we had also tested runners, cyclists, dance studios, natural food consumers. But the place it really clicked was these yoga studios, hot yoga studios. And I never wanted to be only the hot yoga brand, but I wanted to find some audience, because one thing I did research the heck out of is every beverage case study out there. In fact, almost every business case study I know about starts inch wide, mile deep. Right. Even Facebook, right? Harvard campus, that incoming class, then a couple other classes, then the Ivy League. Then they did it really fast, but they did start narrow. So there were a couple little things, fortunately, I picked up on, techniques that I had learned. That I was curious and always looking to improve and learn and refine and kind of find I used to call it our ATM code. What's the code that once you figure it out, this plus this minus this times that, boom, equals results.
No one expects the Spanish Inquisition or the Nice Guys on Business. Go from where you are now to where you could be. Get expert tips to grow your business, to be more productive and more efficient, whether you're trying to build influence, grow your community, or make it rain. Best-selling author of Nice Guys Finish First, Doug Sandler, can lead the way. The Nice Guys on Business is produced by TurnKey Podcast Productions. Now, here's your host, Doug Sandler.
All right, Nice Guy community. Mark Rampolla, he is here today to help us all rethink what success and freedom can really mean. Now, as the founder of ZICO Coconut Water, arguably, he put the coconut water industry on the map. At least I would say that he did, because I've been a fan of his product and him for many, many years. And then he did what every founder would like to do. He sold it to Coca-Cola. Mark currently is the co-founder of Ground Force Capital, where he and his team help leaders grow and help them with purpose and profit and authenticity and everything that a founder really needs in order to launch and grow their business. They don't just invest, they get in the trenches helping the companies that they invest in go further than they ever thought was possible. Now, he's also the author of An Entrepreneur's Guide to Freedom, which digs into how to build success without losing yourself along the way. I'm excited to talk about that part a lot as well. This one's about business balance and breaking free, and let's dive in with Mark. I'm excited to chat with you. Mark, welcome to the Nice Guys on Business podcast.
Thanks, Doug. I'm honored to be here. I love your community, and it's I think it resonates with my views, so I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, I saw that between, raising your family and raising these businesses and doing the right things all the time, you have done well by doing good. And I really feel like that is a cornerstone of why a nice guy can succeed in business. And it's not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of tenacity and perseverance and all those things. So let's just start there. Can nice guys finish first, Mark?
Yeah, look, it's a great question. What I would say is, first of all, what defines first, to be clear, right? I really get a little bit caught up in definitions, but I would say this, whomever it is, from a perspective of defining your own definition of what success means and what nice means, absolutely. Absolutely. I've seen it again and again and again and again. And there are examples of the opposite as well, right?
Right.
But if those aren't the model you're going for, then they're not relevant, right? So I myself feel like I've certainly seen it again and again, lots of nice guys, men and women, that have been ridiculously successful. And as a rule, we only invest behind them and we only hire them and we only work with them.
It's interesting you asked and you made the great statement at the beginning where you said, well, it just depends on what first means. So in my book I wrote back in 2015 called Nice Guys Finish First, Gary Shandling was quoted on chapter one. He says, if you don't think nice guys finish first, you don't know where the finish line is. And
Yeah, I love that.
it's so true. I mean,
Yeah,
it is true. So let's talk about this. You grew up in Pittsburgh, no
yeah,
entrepreneurial experience in your family or your background. Well,
yeah.
I think your dad had a little bit of experience with business, but it seems like the guy that was your inspiration was the local Maxwell House sales rep in your
Yeah.
neighborhood. So tell me about what inspired you early on to even begin to take the plunge into the entrepreneurial gene pool?
Well, to clarify one thing, Doug, my dad had zero business background as well.
I
In
was
fact, one of
being
the things I write
kind,
about in the book is he was a nuclear physicist. I didn't
right?
get that gene.
Right,
Never went beyond his entry level job, which he liked, hardcore math and science. And I joke that, he had for a mind that could split the atom, he was a ridiculously poor investor, let alone business person. Just invested wrong time, wrong place, So anyway, I learned a lot of painful lessons that way, but a wonderful, wonderful human being, a very nice guy, a grounded, loving, caring man.
nice.
But yeah, no business people in my family. I have to look back to my grandfather paternally, which I didn't know that well, or certainly when he was active. But yeah, when I look back, the only real business person I remember was a family friend who was the Maxwell House Coffee sales rep, effectively
Right.
for southwestern Pennsylvania. I know what those jobs are now, but he was just a nice guy, a sales guy, related with everyone. They had just a little bit nicer car than ours, a little bit nicer house than ours, what I realized is when you remember these things, they have meaning, right? So I gave that meaning. So it wasn't until decades later that I had any interest in entrepreneurship. In fact, going to college, all the way through grad school, I thought entrepreneurship was weird. I didn't get
Right.
it. I didn't get it. I thought corporations run the world. That's where I want to be. But I learned later this is the fun side of the table.
So with experience, like you worked for, I believe, IBM and International Paper at one point in your career or in your past, and then then you started to think, well, I do like what's happening in this corporate environment, so I'm going to jump out and go into the entrepreneurial world? Or did you say there's got to be something more for me than this? Because it doesn't seem like from the training and experience that you had that the journey would have taken you to go into something like starting your own company or building your own business.
It's a great question. It's a great question, Doug. And I think, look, when I look back, I do think about it the way you're talking about it. Isn't it interesting? My journey took me that way because it's not obvious. It wouldn't have been obvious. And in fact, it started with some fear when I look back and I'm honest about it. I I had gone into this corporate career believing that's what I should do. That's what you can
Right.
do if you're smart, if you work hard, that's where success is. So I thought then. So I enjoyed it. I did well, but there was never a driving passion for me around that. And I started to realize, oh man, I think I've trapped myself here. Like life
Mm,
is good now. The proverbial golden handcuffs are getting a little tighter, a little bit more gold. And do I really see myself as a corporate guy for the long term? Do I want my daughters to see me as a
hmm.
corporate guy? And so I had some fear around like, oh man, I don't know that I want that, but I wasn't sure what the alternative was. And I'd be hard pressed to look at one particular example. Actually, I could give you one particular example. I remember in IBM, I was a pretty decent level, sort of level as a manager, and most of my peers were a lot older than me. And I remember International Paper had acquired a company, and that my boss and his peers were saying, "Oh, that guy, the guy that runs that company, he's never going to show up to this meeting because he's off skiing at his place
Right.
in Vail." And they were talking about him like he was a loser because he wasn't going to show up at this meeting. And I remember thinking, like, now that's pretty interesting. I like to work hard, but I like to ski, and I like the idea of having a choice about whether or not I go to these meetings, right? And so there were a series of little things that just made me wonder, is there something different for me? Is there something different for me?
The I think about those that on the other side take the jump into the entrepreneurial pool and start their own businesses. Many of our community members are entrepreneurs and they are founders. They chase the dollar, which isn't necessarily the best target to shoot for when you're an entrepreneur. Certainly, it can be a goal. Look, I'd like to make $1 million as opposed to making $500,000. I'd like to have a little bit more money in the bank. I'd love to have this property or whatever it is. But at some point, just chasing money makes it really challenging for you to work those in the beginning stages. You remember those 18-hour days many times, maybe even longer than that, those 7-day work weeks. Talk to those that are in our community about the importance of finding something that you love doing, because part of that early part of your journey was figuring out, hey, what is it? Do I want to be a guy that's nothing wrong with a plumbing business or a electrical
Yeah.
business or a guy that does overhead doors, but that wasn't your passion. That didn't
Yeah.
drive you. So can you talk about passion versus the power of following a dollar?
Yeah, great. Yeah, absolutely. So I'll first, before I tell my story, I'll tell you, like, I don't invest, we don't invest in early stage entrepreneurs, but I still wind up talking to a lot of them. And one of my first responses is, hey, would you be willing to go after this business with your heart and soul for 10 years, knowing that you're probably not going to make a lot of money along the way, and that you've got about a 10% chance of being successful, and successful defined as, fairly still pretty modest,
Right.
not tens of millions, probability wise. Are you still going to go after it? You still want to go after it? And it's the people that say, God, you know what? I want to make a ton of money. I think I'm different, but you know what? I'm going after it because I just got this itch. I got this urge. I got this passion, whatever it is. They've got a shot. They've
Mm-hmm.
got a shot from my lens. For me, I think fortunately, I did go through a process where I looked at businesses that could have been purely about making money. One of them was a trucking business. I
Right.
thought,
Right.
oh, there's an opportunity in trucking. I'm going to set up a trucking business in Central America because that's where I lived. I looked at the, dairy processing businesses, chocolate businesses. So I looked at a lot of different things, but I finally did conclude, man, if I'm going to put my heart and soul into this, it better have meaning for me. I'd be able to better be able to give it the meaning that I want and hold on to that and focus on that. And I went through a pretty rigorous process of analyzing business ideas, not just about the market size and the economics,
Mm-hmm.
but also about something I could be passionate about that fit with my lifestyle, my values, was something that I could get excited about. And so coconut water for me was as much about the ability to be associated with outdoor sports, which I love, fitness, which I love, health and wellness, the tropics that I love and have spent a lot of time with. But I have no doubt, I also knew that business could make money, right? Because it's easy to say follow whatever your passion is, but we live in a material world, and we're material boys and girls. So it's helpful to at least have a rational sense of, is this a healthy business? Is it a place that can support the kind of living you want ultimately?
So your outcome, your success is the exception, unfortunately, rather than the
Yeah.
rule when it comes to entrepreneurship. Is there something specific that you might attribute that to? Was it coming up with a white space idea, having great connections, creating great systems even before you started the business? All of the above. What was it that you would attribute a majority of your success to?
Yeah, it certainly was a little bit of those things, but I would say that, you know, first of all, I'll say timing does matter. It matters, and we got it timed right. The market was right for beverages. We were early in coconut water. We were on a cutting edge, but not a bleeding edge. There were coconut water brands that started a few years before us. They were too early.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One thing I think had no network when I started at all, certainly in this industry, and not in the U.S. My network is in Latin America. I think the thing that when I look back, I do think I had much more of an entrepreneurial edge than I thought I did, and part of that is risk tolerance. I have a very high risk tolerance level, and I'm comfortable with pain and difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I also have a curiosity to learn. And so, and where that's important is, yeah, I talk with a lot of entrepreneurs like, look, you can spin the world, just don't spin yourself, right?
Mm.
So by that I mean you can
Hmm.
tell the world, oh, this product's amazing, the service is amazing, but in yourself and ideally with your team, you got to say, is it? Are we certain? How do we know? Right. And so we did a ton of testing and learning. So when we launched Zico, me with a very, very teeny team, we were out on the streets of New York handing out samples, talking to potential customers, talking to potential consumers, and seeing where it stuck. I thought this was going to be a predominantly Latino product or Southeast
Hmm.
Asian product. They know coconut water is familiar to them. They can't get it. They care less. They thought, canned coconut water for 99 cents with a bunch of sugar in it was coconut water, right? And so, but fortunately, we had also tested runners, cyclists, dance studios, natural food consumers. But the place it really clicked was these yoga studios, hot
Mm.
yoga studios. And I never wanted to be only the hot yoga brand, but I wanted to
Right.
find some audience because one thing I did research the heck out of is every beverage case study out there. In fact, almost every business case study I know about starts inch wide, mile deep.
Right.
Even Facebook, right? Harvard campus, that incoming class, then a couple other classes, then the Ivy League. Then they did it really fast, but they did start narrow. So there were a couple little things, fortunately, I'd picked up on techniques that I had learned. That I was curious and always looking to improve and learn and refine and kind of find I used to call it our ATM code. What's the code that once you figure it out, this plus this minus this times that, boom, equals results.
I don't want to pass over too quickly what you just said, because part of what you said is the secret to success in every entrepreneurial journey, and it is inch wide, mile deep, not the other way around. Not,
Not the other
hey,
way
if
around.
the world is your market, guess who's your market? Absolutely nobody.
Nobody.
That's the biggest challenge. So can you just can you talk just a little bit about that, because I'm sure as you talk to with Ground Force Capital, as you talk to all of these folks that are excited about, their maybe mid or later stage founders, about what they need to do right, inch wide, mile deep, you never lose sight of that. You can start to widen your market, but man, talk about the riches are in the niches. So talk about that for a
Yeah.
second.
Look, it's so true, Doug. And I've seen this again and again and again and again. And we look for this now as pattern recognition is how businesses find, a very specific market opportunity with a very specific customer and solve a very unique problem in a very unique way. Like get that small. Expansion is a heck of a lot easier when you nail that solution. And so that looks differently in every business, right? I've never seen the exact same pattern,
Hmm.
come through, but we see that again and again. And for us, like I said, and part of this, what drove me was I thought about Red Bull and the fact that one thing they had done a beautiful job of is almost effectively creating the energy state. I need energy to XYZ, right? And they position themselves as this is energy and a can,
Right.
right? It wasn't a category before that. And what I loved about that was this idea of owning a little piece of someone's psyche, which is that when they think about a need state like energy, boom, they're going to think about that. And I see that for Zico to apply, but I'll give you a totally different example. A friend of mine runs a very successful recruiting firm called Force Brands. And pretty much well, now they've expanded a little bit, but for a period of time, all they did was um, mid and senior level executives in food and beverage industry, the
Hmm.
natural food and beverage industry.
All right.
That's it. That's it. And 20 years ago, that industry wasn't nearly as big as it is now. And that's all they did. But when you wanted to hire somebody in that industry, he's it. He's the only game in town.
Well,
And
it's
so,
great.
right. And I've seen that again and again and again. There's a realtor in LA that I just admire her infinitely. Never seen her name. Pardee is the name. Never seen that name anywhere until I moved to Venice Beach. And then every single corner is party. Everybody's talking about party. You want to rent, you want to buy, you got to go through party, right? And it's like unbelievable. Now, if they choose to expand, great, but at least you've proven an anchor, a consistency, and a learning and a passion. You own a little bit of somebody's mind, a little bit of somebody's mind and
I'm
heart.
pretty sure if I remember correctly, you lost your home in the Pacific Palisades fire. Is that right? So you're probably
That's
seeing
right.
real estate signs all the time. We just
Yeah.
started one of our podcasts. One of our clients who are producing their show. It's called Rebuilding After the LA Fires, and it is one
Wow.
of those podcasts that is specifically dedicated to the crazy bureaucracy that you have to go through in order to try to rebuild. Don't mean to get off track there, but sorry that you lost your home. I hope
Thank you.
that it goes easy for you and or easier for you than most.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And look, one of the things I write about this in the book, and because I feel like in many ways this was a chance for me to eat my own cooking, right? I talk about this work of freedom, which we'll get into, but really what I realized is I'm really good, like a lot of entrepreneurs are, at solving problems, at diving into a crisis, at doing and moving through and getting shit done, right? And that's a great skill set, right? And it's a valuable one. I'm so glad I have that, and I respect that with entrepreneurs. But I came to learn that's about, I see your classic cars in the background.
Yeah.
That's like having two gears, on and off,
Right, right.
on and off, right? And I started to learn over the last 7 years doing my own sort of self-exploration. Oh my God, there's other gears. There's low gears, there's medium gears, there's high gears, there's reverse, and so one of the things I went through, which I've really never gone through like this in my life, is I felt all the feelings.
Mm.
Talk about being a nice guy. I, as a kid, was sensitive and, cried and laughed and just felt everything, right? And I stopped doing that at some point because I didn't think it was how a man should be. Yeah. That's gay. A lot of us do that. But I've started in the last number of years to actually get back in touch with my feelings. And after the fires, man, I was crying.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
angry. I'm upset. I'm sad. I'm experiencing everything. And what I came to see is, God, they're just emotions. They're just energy moving through the body. And let me experience them. And I also realized I was missing out on half of life. Not only is
Oh,
it
totally.
right to have a car that you can get different places at different speeds, but it's also enjoyable to just be able to experience a whole different way of driving.
Well, feel the feels for sure because I live in Ojai, so not too far from the Pacific
Okay.
Palisades, and we've had some fires here over the years, Thomas Fire
Yeah.
and many others, and it's one of those things where you have to surrender, and then the biggest challenge is during the rebuild is you're dealing with all the bullshit that you have to deal with, unfortunately, with this stupid political environment that we are in. With hurry up and wait is basically their attitude with everything. It takes forever to rebuild, especially where you are, especially with the amount of devastation. And again,
Well, one of the reasons why I decided, again, a different approach than I've ever done in my life, I decided there's, you remember, I don't know if you're a classic rock fan, but remember Rush? That's what it's
absolutely.
coming to me. If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice, right?
Right, right.
So, like, I realized, oh, I don't have to make a decision. So I decided I'm not going to make a decision for a year. And so I rented a little place and I'm just going to wait and see. And it's not about, oh, the market's going to dip. Maybe this is better. Maybe that happens, but maybe not. I'm at peace with just giving myself some space, letting it settle in. And I've decided I'm taking 2 years. I'm taking another year, no decision. Rent a little place, just, just just be. I'm still working my ass off in lots of other ways, but I just don't feel the drive to necessarily. I'm gonna wait till I have a full body yes is one term I use to
Well,
say, all right, going.
there is the biggest challenge right now in dealing in the environment where Pacific Palisades the thought to rebuild is that nobody knows what's going on. So to hurry up and make decisions in an environment where nobody can actually facilitate the decision that you've made, to bring in a contractor, do I rent my home? Do I sell my property? What do I do? Look, they tell you when you're grieving, give yourself at least 6 months, and you've decided on 2 years. Give yourself 6 months before you start making any kind of major decisions. And I think you've done it wise. And you can still feel the feels, but just
Yeah,
not get caught up in the frustration of the bureaucracy that goes
absolutely.
on
And
around you.
look, and this to me has immediate application for every entrepreneur
Agreed.
because I see again and again and again how entrepreneurs and leaders, and I have so much compassion for it because I get it. Get caught up in the energy of the time, the moment, must do this, can't get, you got to make a decision, you got to move. And I generally challenge people just to pause, power of the pause, just to say, okay, how might this, now this is a little extreme with the fires, but
All right.
I feel this way, but in almost any business situation, how might this be happening for us? Just allow for that possibility. How might this be happening for us? The worst thing you can imagine in business, right? I look back and we got shut down by the FDA for some paperwork glitch immediately when we launched, right? I couldn't see it then, but
Mm,
I look back now and think, my God, thank God that happened. Because had it happened a year later, we would have been way bigger and it might have
hmm.
killed the company. We were small enough we got to manage through and figure it out and learn some tough lessons. Get the paperwork right. Like you can complain all you want about the government, the FDA, anything. They are what they are. That's reality. Get the paperwork done. Right.
When you sold Zico in 2013 and then you bought it back from Coca-Cola in 2021, how much of that was personal and how much of that was this was just the right way, the right thing to do, or was it a good business decision?
It was absolutely a good business decision. So I I did that through my investment firm.
Hmm.
And so I don't, it's not my only my money. I have a big chunk of my money in it, but we also have, institutional investors, big family offices. We have 500-600 million under management right now. So I needed to make sure, and we need to make sure it was a purely rational business decision. Now, so in fact, at the right time, I recused myself from the what we would call the investment committee process
Right,
to make sure it
right.
wasn't emotionally biased.
Yeah, yeah.
That being said, this is another area where I laugh. People will talk about like no place for emotions in business, right? I even said it, it's purely rational, right? Well, the joke of that is like, first of all, good luck, right? We're human, we have emotions.
True.
Second of all, neuroscience is now crystal clear. You get the best results when you align your intention with your emotional state. It's resonance, and that can be measured and tracked, and it's a hugely powerful and beginning to be
Mm,
understood phenomenon. And so, when I look back on this, every investment we make has an emotional charge to it.
hmm.
Because if it doesn't, what are we doing? If it does, everybody shows up more. We're
Yeah.
excited. We want to work with the people, the idea, and that is energy, and that energy makes the difference. It's got to hit the numbers, right? It's got to tick all the boxes. We'll do, 3 months and hundreds of thousands of dollars of diligence before we invest, but we also want to say, can we say, hell yeah? Are we all in, full body yes on this investment?
When you sold Zico, then you bought it back again as a part of Ground Force Capital, and then you look at the structure of Ground Force Capital, and you think, well, he's just doing it again in every environment that he could possibly find with a lot more wisdom, and the wisdom of a board of directors behind you also to help make sure that you don't make a bad decision.
Right.
Although what are the stats against startups actually succeeding? Isn't it like 90% of them don't get past their first year,
Yep.
or what?
90 in beverage, which is about probably comparable to tech. 90% will never get over 10 million in revenue. It might even be lower than that. And I can tell you what, nobody makes money at 10 million in revenue.
Okay.
Nobody. Nobody. You got to be 50 to 100 plus. So the probability of really success is way less than 1%, way less. Now, but it's a little bit better on second time founders, a little bit better. That 10 goes to like 20 something. So you double your odds, but it's still not that high, right?
Right, right.
And I'll tell you what I learned. What I fortunately, by the time I had 7 years between when I sold and when we bought Seco back, I knew, and I had worked with some world-class operators. I was good. I was a very good CEO. I was a very good founder, probably in the top couple percent, right?
Hmm.
But I see even better now. So I've put a team in to run the business that could run circles around me circles around me, but they can't do what I can do. And so I'm a chairman of the board, an active board member. And we have a term for it. It's the zone of genius. My zone of genius is not day-to-day operations of a company. It is way better with inspiration, with creativity, with direction, with people. I love getting people in the right roles, helping them find their zones of genius. And it's taken us a couple of years, but now we have a team that's like right CEO, right CFO, right head of sales, right head of marketing, right brand person. And this thing is set to scale. So that's what excites me.
It's always good to have another fan of Gay Hendricks, The Big Leap, and Zone
Oh,
of Genius in the house. So you're speaking to the choir here when you talk about Zone of
yeah.
Genius. We realized even at a small company, we're a less than a seven-figure company, but even at a small company like ours, in producing other people's podcasts, we know that if I was spending any time in spreadsheets or editing or distribution or any of that, that we were gonna be in the crapper really soon. And my partner said, "Hey, if you ever see me selling or building relationships, Doug, you know I'm in the wrong spot." So we've hired people to do that. We've given up some of our income, but man, it's so much better to be able to do what we love doing. At least we can arrive here every day and enjoy what our tasks.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I'm a absolute fanatical fan of that. We use that in our investment firm on a regular basis. How are we identifying and staying in our zones of genius? We do work on Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, Strength Finder. We challenge each other, right? Getting a little out of your zone. And one trick I use, one little tack I talk about a lot of this stuff in the book is become a feedback junkie. And so I ask for feedback from my team constantly, 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 constantly. What could I do better? Where do you see me? How do you see me showing up? How could I be even more? There's little trick phrases that make it safer.
Right.
How could I be even more powerful to you? And so I've had 23 years, 25-year-olds on my team, X layers below me, call me up and say, Mark, are you available for a clearing? I noticed that, in this situation, blah, 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 you're really in the weeds. Like you're trying to look at the spreadsheet, you're trying to do all this stuff. And, I gotta say, like, you'd be even more powerful to me and us
Amazing.
if you just trusted us. We'll always run it by you, right? You can see whatever you want to see, but let us run for this for a little bit, because then you get to put your energy in the incredible places. It hurt a little bit, but what powerful, powerful feedback.
How great is that, though, that you've created this, hats off to you for creating this environment. Hats off to that 23, 25-year-old for being able to have the cojones to be able to say, hey, Mark,
Yeah.
look, here's a problem. I love that. What'd you say? Can we have a clearing? Is that what you guys call it at your organization? Let's have a clearing. There are many leaders in organizations that say, if it's my way or the highway, you've got to do it this way. You've created that culture. And that's got to be a feel good world for those that feel safe to be able to say that, and it creates it. I really think, and maybe I'd love to hear your comment on this. It creates an environment that innovation is welcome, because it's safe there in that conversation. It's got to be safe in the idea sessions as well.
Look, that's the hypothesis, but we actually see it in reality. So I can't tell you today that I can translate that to ROI, that it puts us as the top 1% of investment firms yet. But I can tell you that's the hypothesis we have, and I can also see data on the other side, where the opposite, where it is command and control, where it's I'm certain I'm right, where we grind people like crazy. I see that in enough other firms to know that's not our competitive advantage. We think our competitive advantage is we are nice guys. We are nice people. We're brutal. We are tough, and we have tough, very radical conversations that I'm sure very few other investment firms ever have.
But it doesn't mean you can't have challenging conversations. It's like saying that being nice is a sign of weakness. I think being nice is a sign of strength. It's a sign of showing your emotion. It's a sign of, look, I've created a culture within my environment, small as it may be, but I feel like anybody in my organization can tell me that I'm doing something wrong, and I need to listen to it, because I've given them the freedom to be able to use that as much as they want to. I want that. I think it helps you grow as a person. It helps you grow as an organization, and I think it's only to everybody's benefit to put people on the bus that have that same philosophy.
Look, and I think that's the point that's so interesting to me is that philosophy, which is basically culture, right? Culture is the collective actions we take. It's not what's written on the board. It's how
Right.
you show up, in various situations day to day. And the important thing I think is that leaders be intentional. It's okay. You want to build whatever culture you want to build, you go ahead and build it. Be intentional, follow through,
Mhm.
and test and learn, right? Test and learn. And what we've been doing is testing and learning. And we find we're just getting better results when we operate this way. And so we're gonna keep doing it and even more so. And I'll give you one specific
Yeah.
example. You know, when, for example, like we have a concept that sounds straightforward, but it's actually quite radical, which is take 100% responsibility for the situation of your life.
It's like you're the
Before you
creator of your own reality.
You're the creator of your own reality, right?
Right.
And so what's fascinating is when we do our end of year reviews or
Hmm.
mid-year reviews with people, it used to be I was exhausted preparing, my partner and I are preparing, trying to think about this person and their progression and their career development and where they fit in. And they're coming to us looking for
Right.
direction and
Right.
where we're going to go. We flipped it completely.
I love what
100.
you're about to tell me, and I have no idea what it is, but I think I know
This
what
is
it is.
this is your life.
Right.
How our job is to create the conditions that align with our goals and objectives, growth, profitability, whatever it is. And within that, create the conditions where you have the opportunity
Hmm.
to fully realize your full potential, aligned with what we're achieving. So, how are you doing? How do you think you're doing?
Nice.
And tell us what gives you that indication and and where do you want your career to go, right? And someone might say, well, look, I'd like to be on a partner track. Amazing, amazing. We would love that too. So, what do you think that takes? Well, I don't know. I'd like to have this, and I'd like to. No, no. Oh, what do you think that takes? Like, okay, why don't you take a crack at taking those steps? What do you think you deliver? Of course, we have an input and we
Right.
align and
Right.
things.
Right.
And it's the most amazing thing. I'm so much more relaxed. I have more energy. I can coach more because I'm not taking responsibility that I have to solve it. It's not mine to solve.
So you wrote this book, An Entrepreneur's Guide to Freedom, and you dig into how to build a success, through business without losing yourself along the way. Did you write that as a legacy to what you have done? Did you write that for future business leaders to be able to look at and use as a manual from here in
Mm.
their journey to success? What was the purpose of the book to reach a greater audience? Maybe all of the above.
The main purpose of the book before it even became a book was for me. So I got to, I think I've come to realize, there's a saying that teachers teach what they need to learn.
Right.
I write what I need to read. I need write what I need to learn. So I got to a place in my life a couple of years after selling ZICO where I realized that, I had, pile of money in the bank, I had a beautiful house on the beach, and I was basically retired and at a young age and paddle boarding and mountain biking and traveling around the world. But little by little by little, it just became not really enough. And what I remember little by little kind of realizing, my God, I'm back in the grind. I got my schedules packed. I got meetings all over the place. I'm chasing the next deal. I'm chasing the next million or whatever else. And my back's out of whack every
Right.
couple of months. I'm drinking like a fish. My marriage is not quite what I thought it was going to be. Like my investments are not quite turning out the way I thought they were. And I thought, God, this is success and this is freedom.
Are you listening,
Like,
Nice AI community? Are you listening to this? Doesn't matter. $200 million deal with Coca-Cola does not get that big check in your hand and you're like, it's over and you're success and relaxed.
look,
Back pain, the root of back pain is emotional issues that you are having.
exactly right. And then, over the time I've met with entrepreneurs that have made, tens, hundreds, billions. And I see the same pattern, same pattern. So I decided, all right, I'm at a point in my life where I got to dive into this. So I just started to dive into with really deep curiosity. How did I get here? What did I
Mm-hmm.
believe? What's the story I was telling myself? What was I reading? What's the models I was following? I dove in really deep on coaching, all sorts of modalities, Kay Hendricks among them, counseling, psychoanalysis, shaman, retreats, neuroscience. I just kind
Right,
of went
right.
deep into all these modalities to try to understand what I was going through, what I was struggling with. And I started to develop my own sort of formula or kind of hack,
Mm-hmm.
like reprogramming in a way. And I started to apply it in my life. And I started to notice subtle little changes. And I remember when my business partner, Dan, was probably one of the first ones that said, God, what's changed with you? You just seem different, like just a little bit more calm, but also more intentional, more relaxed, but also more energy. Like, what's going on? So I started to share with him a little bit, and then we dove in together on this journey with coaching and a couple other advisors and coaches that helped us jointly. And then we started to share with our team. And little by little, we started to see things shift. And I started becoming more open and sharing with more and more entrepreneurs like, look, I struggled with this, I struggled with that. I cut off my emotions and I thought I was going to be successful, and I'm not feeling it. And I'm hearing this like, oh God, me too, me too, me
Yeah.
too. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to formalize this, put it in writing. First of all, and foremost for my own self to kind of like formalize this stage for me. And then if it happens to be relevant for anybody else, amazing. That's a bonus. So I did that. And then I'd been working on it for about 2 years. And then I was close to done when the fires hit.
Mm.
And I decided it's time. It's time. So I wrote an epilogue about the fires and I sent it off to my publisher, and I'm done. And so what's been fascinating is it launched just a couple of weeks ago, and it hit a national bestseller list.
Nice.
And the response I'm getting is absolutely incredible. I hear from hundreds, if not thousands already, 1,000 plus already, entrepreneurs, leaders just saying, "Oh my God, thank you. Like nobody's talking about this. I thought I was alone." Because I really get vulnerable. I share a lot of my struggles, and we all have them. I got sick and tired. It's like I get sick and tired of seeing people suffer when there are some
Yeah.
tools and some techniques and some hacks and a way to systematize one's mindset.
Mark, I so appreciate you spending the extra time with me. I said, nice guy community. I said to Mark, it should be about 20, 30 minutes. I said, as I said that, I said, why are you saying that? You know that you're going to ask Mark a million questions.
Yeah,
You know the
yeah.
conversation is going to go there. I so appreciate the extra time that
You're
you
welcome, Doug. I lost track as well. So fortunately, I built in a buffer.
And for all of those in our community that are interested in finding out more about what Mark does, how he does what he does, about his company Ground Force Capital, about the sale of ZICO, all of that stuff and more, an entrepreneur's guide to freedom. That link will be in the show notes to Mark's website, so you have access to all that. Anything I should be asking you that I'm not asking you, Mark? I was told by your publicist today. He's like, Mark's an open book. He'll talk about anything, but I don't know that I've hit on anything that you want to talk about.
Oh no, you did, Doug. You did. I'm here I'm here to serve in a way, right? So what's ever going to come through me comes through me, and I think it came through me. So I feel complete.
Well, I very much appreciate your completeness, and thank you for being here on the show, and thanks for
Yeah.
sharing your inspiration and your motivation with our community today.
Thank you. My pleasure, Doug.
Hey, nice guy community, never underestimate the power of nice. Again, special thanks to Mark Rampolla. All of his information will be right there in the show notes. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
For Doug, Strickland, the Nice Guys on Business podcast, I'm Steve O'Brien. Yo, bartender, Jobo needs a refill.